record. We're live.
Good. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. As usual, Ogmandino, oh my gosh, the gravy.
Slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destiny. We will persist until we succeed.
The slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destiny. We will succeed. We will persist until we succeed. Thank you, Dan. So we're in Provo, Utah today for there's a healthcare event, and the room you'll see will fill up in a few minutes. The big room behind us. So we've got an event which, despite Omicron, despite midwinter in Utah, people who really want to get ahead in life and have a dream can achieve that dream if they follow a system and if they are disciplined and really stick to a goal. So Dan Burke, of course, is a rock star. He's solid every single Friday. We're here together. I see Riley joined. Riley's here as well. John is here as well in Utah. So we're all part of this. And right now we've got, hello, Dee Dee. We've also got Neil Farber. Oh, looky there. We've also got Laurie.
Let me just,
There you go. Sorry.
Thanks. So we've got Neil Farber here, who's a very, very interesting character. He came from Phoenix, but he's a fascinating character. So I'd like to ask him a couple of questions. First of all, Neil, tell us a little bit who you are and what you do, like in 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about mindset. How do you get there? Why do you get there? All this kind of stuff. So who are you?
I was born in Toronto, Canada. I'm still actually Canadian, dual citizen, Canadian and Israeli, and moved to the States a long time ago. Moved to Phoenix and then to Wisconsin and went to medical school. I became a pediatric anesthesiologist working at a children's hospital, and also got a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology. I originally had a degree in psychology as well. And after a lot of years working in the operating room, I used to do a lot of medical missions for third world countries, things like that as well, to help kids with facial deformities. And after a lot of years, I started going blind and had to leave the operating room. And I retired and moved back to Phoenix, where I am now an adjunct professor of psychology. And I also had a life coaching business, things like that, but not in a traditional life coaching way. It was called action coaching, action board coaching. And a lot of it was mindset things. And I still actually do a Zoom class teaching people mindset things as well in coaching. And most of the coaching is all goal directed. How do you achieve goals? So I write for Psychology Today, and I have a blog there called The Blame Game. I've written several positive psychology books and in the International Positive Psychology Association. And the other thing that's a big factor in my life is I'm a martial artist, and I've done that for over 50 years now. And so I'm in with a group of a lot of very famous martial artists that are friends and connect with, that own gyms and clubs and martial arts schools kind of all over the world. And with my wife, Lori, she runs an international federation for Israeli martial arts. So we have connections in most countries all over. The other just quick thing is that I used to sell for Farber in Houston almost 20 years ago. I had had a spinal cord accident from doing martial arts and had a back surgery, but hadn't regained a lot of function or sensation. I lost my reflexes in one leg, in both legs at first, and after the surgery recovered partly. And that's the time that I got onto New Skin, started taking their supplements, because they said I had a cane, and they said, you may not be able to get rid of this cane. So I was looking for anything that I could do. So I was on their supplements, and I fully recovered. I got just a little bit of residual paresthesia, lack of sensation in one foot, but otherwise I'm full back, recovered for everything. And then slowly, because I was feeling good, the scanner was just coming out, but it wasn't really available. So I just kind of forgot about it, and was working full time in anesthesia and in pharmacology and writing books. And so I kind of forgot about Pharmanex for several years until I met Lawrence.
So, but in the meanwhile, there's talent that we often don't know about unless we ask and we get to know the people a bit better. So tell us a little bit about first of all, why did you get into the musical side of things with your all these artists? This is incredible stuff.
I was working as a pediatric anesthesiologist, and a friend of mine had some connections working in the music industry as a backstage doctor. And I was living in Milwaukee, and the largest music festival in the country is in Milwaukee, called Summerfest. 400 to 700 bands every year over a 10-day span. And so this person, I used to, when I was a medical resident, I used to help him out a little bit. He moved to Cleveland, and unbeknownst to me, he gave people my phone number in different backstage offices. So I started getting phone calls, and I ended up taking over the business. And so for probably 25 years, I was the backstage doctor at Summerfest and all other venues in Wisconsin, and then internationally. So I flew to London with Courtney Love and The Cure, or flew to Dublin with Smashing Pumpkins, or in Madison for the Rolling Stones. But I was the doctor for pretty much everybody you could think of in the music industry, from Billy Joel, Elton John, Sting, James Taylor, Britney Spears, pretty much everybody, Katy Perry, or
Sort of an underachiever in some way.
so. It was an interesting experiences. A lot of stories that I'm not allowed to talk about.
So what motivates you now at your age? What do you want?
At my advanced stage,
No,
I'm in my 60s.
advanced. At your age.
The most valuable, I have a lot of cool stuff that I've collected from a lot of countries, and they're in some nice glass cases. And I look at them and I recall where I was when I got them. And when I think of the most valuable thing that I own is time. And right now we got involved. I founded this Federation of Israeli Martial Arts, and I wanted to leave it, to do it as a legacy, because I've been in martial arts for a long time, and there's a lot of infighting in different groups, and I wanted to bring everybody together. And it's done that, but it's a lot of work. And my wife and I work at this, and it's all her business, but I help her out. And we were spending a lot of time doing it. And I realized I'm kind of substituting that time for things that I used to like to do, play music. I'm an artist and an author. I've written several books, and I haven't been able to get back to that because we've been so involved in this business. And so the two things, one is health, because if you don't have your health and you're spending time on your health, or your health goes away, then your time is gone. And so those are two factors that are really important. And when we met you back at the anti-aging meeting, it became really apparent that I looked at the model again. And this is something that this form of doing business that's both a passion, because it goes back to the health issues, but also the ability to leverage my time for something that I want and to reduce the time to be able to do other things that I love to do. So it's both. And that's been a focus, not just now, that's been a focus of my life. When I was an anesthesiologist, I was working at least 100 hours a week, both in I had a research lab. And so in my research lab and the operating room, I was working a lot, and I went part-time, meant I'd get one day off a week where I'd try and write books, I'd teach private lessons, I'd do all kinds of things, my coaching business. And when I did that, my life became so much better having some free time. And so that's always been a focus. And now I'm looking at this as a fantastic way to get back in and try and reduce our hours in our other business.
So, Dan, you're going to say something?
Yes.
You're on mute, Dan.
It's a phenomenal story. There's so many obstacles that you've overcome, a spinal injury, blindness, working a ton of hours and making those sacrifices to, ply your trade in the operating room and helping children and all of those things. And lesser people, when presented with much smaller obstacles, don't persevere, right? And so what is it about your mindset that allows you to be faced with these obstacles, a severe spinal cord injury and blindness, where other people would just crawl into a shell and get depressed and all of these other things? Not that maybe you didn't have those feelings sometimes, but what is inside your mind that is different from other people that makes you get past those obstacles and climb and claw past those obstacles to still be successful?
Great question. I believe that it's the resilience, and the resilience based on being mindful of the present and optimistic, hopeful of the future.
Wow, 3 key words: resilience, mindful of the present, and optimistic of the future. There's the beginning of really serious mindset.
Those are 3 things that a lot of people stumble on, right? And if you can keep a positive growth mindset, and I'm sure you're familiar with Carol Dweck's work, her book Mindset. I mean, even at a young age, having those same characteristics, kids see more success than kids that don't have those characteristics. So it's a testament to you, but it's everybody can learn from this story that, when you have those characteristics and you have that growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, what you're able to do and what the obstacles that you're able to overcome, while insurmountable to some people, it's the attitude and the mindset that gets you past those obstacles.
A really quick story. The day I had started having double vision and thought it was just my glasses, and I went back in several different times to my ophthalmologist, and I had bad glaucoma. And then it turned out I had retina problems as well. And there was a day that he said, "We can't do surgery, we can't change this, and you are legally blind." And to be honest, I wasn't happy about it. I'd been looking at, we call them exit strategies, ways to get her working full time in the operating room, and all physicians, everyone that I know as a physician, as a surgeon, anesthesiologist, they have their exit strategies. And so what are they going to invest in? What are they going to try and do? What other side business to try and get them working less in the operating room so that they can spend more time with their family? And so at first, my first thought is, oh, here's an exit strategy now that I can't work anymore. And my next thought is, I'm going to miss doing medical missions. And then after a couple hours, a thought crept into my mind, and I don't know if you're familiar with this show. There's an old show called Longstreet, and he was a detective who was blind, and Bruce Lee came in and gave him some lessons. And my first thought was, wow, this would be great because I can do martial arts blind. How great would that be to be able to teach people as a blind person? And so I kind of immediately jumped to that, as opposed to, oh my God, my life is over.
Turning a negative into a positive.
Fertile possibilities. So just think about this. A doctor, an author of several books, a martial arts expert and organizing worldwide martial arts events, organizing musical events with lots and lots of bands. I mean, really famous bands, not, you know, Uncle Joe around the corner. And here's a person that is looking forward to the future with enthusiasm. And what did you call it? You called it optimism in the future. And I think, you know, considering blind, doctor, all of these things, that's where, and I think it's always important when you have a problem in life, when we have, sometimes we're fortunate to have had a mishap, serious mishap. That's when we grow from that, because we can either, as you said, Dan, you know, close ourselves in a shell and say, woe is me, oh, what a problem. Or we can say, right, this is an issue, this is a big problem. And what did I learn from that? What have I learned from it? How can I go forward, and how can I better myself and help other people better themselves? So this becomes, I think it's inspiring. I think I really do.
Very, very, very inspiring. And, you know, one of the things is, you know, what we've been dealing with the last couple of years with the pandemic, you know, Lawrence and I on our calls, we've been saying, don't waste this crisis, right? And then, you know, I know I met you and Lori out at A4M, and we talked about, you know, I had a crisis within a crisis, and that was a health crisis. And, you know, I was diagnosed with cancer, and, you know, I've done some of my best and most productive work since I was diagnosed with cancer. So sometimes when you're faced with those obstacles, it can bring the best out in you if you allow it to, right? And when you start to think about, you know, is it the money that makes you think about the time that you have left, or is it the time that makes you think about the time, and that's why you value that time more, right? And so, you know, or do you have an event in your life, a health event, that makes you cherish that time more? But I don't, you know, I wish I had in my younger years, you know, valued time as I value time today.
There's as a quick story, the person, Martin Seligman, founded, he came up with this term called learned helplessness. When you keep failing at something, eventually you give up and you stop trying. He's also the founder of positive psychology, because he studied a bunch of salespeople, insurance salespeople, and he was looking at the ones who gave up, but he realized there's a small group that never gave up, that they were just resilient and they kept going until they were successful, and their mindset was completely different than the other group. And he developed the concept of learned optimism, and said, what is it about these resilient people that make them more successful? And they were less likely to quit, more likely to be engaged, more likely to have really high sales. And when they didn't make a sale, their attitude was, the next one's going to be it. And so out of that came the whole field of positive psychology.
Nice.
It's powerful. I mean, it really is powerful. And I think we all have somebody with that story in our lives, right? And we should be trying to surround ourselves. It's one of the things I love about the healthcare forum out there, is it's all like-minded people with this positive mindset to help, not only help people, but help themselves and be accountable to themselves. And really everybody out there has this growth mindset. Like, I can always do more. I can always do more. There's nothing limiting. You don't have these self-limiting beliefs. You don't have these self-limiting behaviors. And you really want to surround yourself with people like that if you want to be successful. You know, you wouldn't, Neil, you probably wouldn't be nearly as successful if you had been surrounded by people who were, you know, what did you say, learned helplessness. You know, it's who you surround yourself with, in addition to your mindset, that helps you create that mindset.
Yes.
And that's why these Friday calls are important, right? It doesn't matter what facet of business you're in, whether you want to work on your personal goals, your personal relationships, your business goals, your business relationships. These Friday mindset calls and having folks on like Neil are what, keeps that mindset intact in your character and keeps you moving forward.
And one of the things that I think is important in any business, anything you do, is the mindfulness aspect. That every single thing you do becomes more enjoyable when you're focused on it, not focused on what happened in the past. It's also a way to be more resilient if you're focusing, learn from the past, but if you're just focused on the past and dwelling on the past, then you're not here now and you're not enjoying the now. And
Absolutely.
the process is something that you can enjoy.
I'm a big follower of Buddhism, as you probably are somewhat too, with the martial arts and everything. And, it's all about mindfulness. And for those of you that don't practice mindfulness, there's a great, one of the, really good Buddhist teachers is Thich Nhat Hanh. And he has a village over in France called Plum Village. And they have an app called Plum Village. And I would encourage anybody who wants to kind of incorporate that mindfulness into their daily activities, download that Plum Village app. There's awesome content on there. I think it's going to really change your life and how you think about things and how you go about your daily activities.
In addition to Thich Nhat Hanh, the other two people are John Kabat-Zinn, who wrote
Godfather of mindfulness.
Yes, so he was the first one to kind of bring it to the States. There were like 3 people that had been studying Buddhism that came back from India that brought it back to the States, and John Kabat-Zinn was the one that made it really famous. So wherever you go, there you are. And the first book on mindfulness, called Mindfulness in the United States, was written by Ellen Langer, who's a PhD Harvard professor, who's a good friend of mine. My daughter worked with her in her lab, and I was the medical advisor for her lab for a long time. And her books are like practical mindfulness that you can use in your daily life and things that you do in ways that you think that are really good.
Awesome. Well, I know after this call, I'm going to have to reset some goals so I can maybe achieve something in my life because I really feel like I haven't achieved anything. But I really appreciate having you on. Lawrence, do you want to open it up for some questions?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, by all means, if anybody wants to say anything, just take yourself off mute and fire away. Leslie, I thought you were going to say something. John Swartz?
Yeah, I have a thought. Neil, yes, you are an interesting man. It was great getting to ride with you over here to Provo. I know martial arts has a lot to do with mindset and discipline. How did that set your life up for success? Because I know you've been doing it for a while, and I'm just curious to see what a positive impact that has made on your life.
In part, it was the physical part, to stay physically fit and good nutrition and being able to continue. Right now, I still teach people in their 20s and 30s, 40s, and I have to be able to physically keep up with them. And in part, from the time I was about 9 years old, I learned how to meditate. And so I've been doing that in different forms. It's changed how I do it, but up to this day, and for a lot of years, I just really focused on mindfulness meditation, which made everything just a lot more enlivening and enjoyable. So it was both the mindset and having goals. So I was just talking to my wife Lori about this the other day, that one of my goals when I was 13 was someday to open up a martial arts school, and someday to become a master, and someday to become a grandmaster in martial arts. And I wanted to do that by the time I was about 80, if I was still able to physically. And I achieved that about 4 or 5 years ago, my grandmaster status. And so I was just kind of looking back the other day, and one of the things that I focus on is celebrating your successes. And I remember celebrating that at the time, and then it kind of faded because a lot of people call me GM or Grandmaster. And I kind of became numb to it. And just the other day, I was like refocusing because someone called me that, and I thought, wow, that was kind of a big moment when I think back that was a goal 50 years ago. And so part of that in martial arts was setting goals. I have a lot of friends that have Guinness Book of World Records, like probably 10 friends that have current Guinness Book of World Records, and everybody was goal driven to, okay, someone broke my record, I'm going to set another one. So everybody's got these realistic, optimistic and realistic goals.
Yeah, but behind all that, behind all the goals and the dreams and hopes of success and all the rest of it, is something which is a 4-letter word. Work.
Action. We say action. If it's work,
Yeah, but it's
work has a negative connotation. Action is a positive.
But it's all
Fine.
action. I agree. Thank you. Right. Corrected. Okay. Action with work. But
Yes.
it's also a consistent hard work, hard action of repetition and over and over and over again until you get it right, and you get it wrong, and you get it wrong, and you get it right, and then you continue. So I think to get to success, it's a question of constant failed repetition to finally get success, and you build on that success.
Yes.
Then you celebrate, excuse me, the success.
Yes.
You feel good about it, but then you forget about all the pain of hours and hours and hours and hours of broken legs and whatever you
Right.
had.
And failure is only failure if you fail to benefit from it and learn from it. Otherwise, not succeeding at first is a great opportunity to learn from that, to do even better.
And it's, along with success and reaching goals and reaching that success, there's a chemical reaction that happens in your brain that makes you feel good, right? And celebrating those successes draws out that feeling in your brain, right? And the dopamine and everything that creates in your brain. So the longer you can extend that feeling of success and that chemical change that's happening in your body, the more you're going to want to keep chasing those successes.
Yes.
Right.
And from what both Dan and Lawrence have said, my last book was called, Throw Away Your Vision Board. So a lot of people are into vision boards, but my last book was called Throw Away Your Vision Board, The Truth About the Law of Attraction. And the book is about why vision boards don't work and why you need to create an action board and actually get up and the planning is great, but here's how step by step to set goals, and here's how to go not just set them, but to attain them. And it always involves an action step. So that was the whole focus of my last book.
Interesting.
Goal setting.
I love that, because a vision is only a vision, right? It's just something that you wrote down, and a dream is just something that you're thinking about achieving. None of that's possible without action.
Right. I actually did a PhD in metaphysics on law of attraction. And so I read every book back to the 1800s on law of attraction, and then looked at what they were trying to say. And then it didn't have an action step. They've added some now, but really that's, as you said, that's the key.
By the way, we've also got a PhD, by the way. Yeah, just an additional little, by the way. So
I think he has more letters after his name than in his Lawrence's entire name, Lawrence Kazan Cassini.
That's true. Anyway, we're 8:03. We're in Utah. We're in Provo. Everybody's going to go and have a look at the laboratories right now. So I want to thank Dr. Neil Farber, Grandmaster Neil Farber, PhD Dr. Neil Farber, for having joined us today. Thank you. Bless you too. And Dan, thanks very much for the call. Thanks everybody for being on the call.
Thank
And,
you. A lot of great.
action is the word. Action.